welcome to my channel Final Beauty, or welcome back. I'm Debbie if you don't know me. For today's video, I wanted to do a spooky season makeup favourites kind of video because I thought what better way to launch into October and the spookiest month of the year than to talk about some of my favourite makeup to use at this time of year. So I've got lots of things to talk about. I've got eyeshadow palettes, I've got blush, highlight, lipsticks, eye pencils, all sorts of things to show you that are my favourites to go to at this time of year, and some new favourites as well. Some of the things may be available, some not anymore. I keep my collection forever. But if you want to see some inspiration of things you might pull from your collection at this time of year to create spooky looks, then this is the video for you. So let's just hop straight into it. Okay, thought I'd start with something that I use all year round, but it's perfect for this time of year as well. I should really be like being paid by this company at this point for the amount of hype I've given this palette, but honestly it's fantastic. This is the Lunatic Labs Contour Book 1. I do own the Contour Book 2 as well, which is a lot deeper, and there's green packaging for that one, but the Contour Book 1 is where it's all about if you're my kind of skin tone. It's a contour palette, but it's perfect for Halloween because you've got a lot of the grady sort of tones that you might want to use to create spooky looks. I always pretty much do the same thing with my contour, and I dip into these three shades. I just really love this one, particularly at this time of year. It's in spooky packaging, and yeah, it's got those tones that you can really create shadows with and do spooky looks with. Another thing that's great about it is that each of the pans are removable so that you can replace whatever shades you've run out of. But I honestly can't see the day when I'll ever hit pan on this. I've owned it, I think 5 years. I use it every time I do my makeup. If you check my description box, you'll always see it listed. And I've not hit pan on any of the shades. They're just, you know, they just go on forever. You can use them as eyeshadows. They're not especially pigmented for that, but they're just perfect as contour. They're blendable, the colours mix together really well, and they create a really subtle but yeah, chiseled kind of effect. I can't speak highly enough about this palette. I bought mine on Beauty Bay. They don't stock them on Beauty Bay anymore, so it might be expensive if you're in the UK to get this now, but highly recommend it. Okay, next up, going into blush. I've got a couple of blush recommendations for this time of year and things that I don't use necessarily the rest of the year, but definitely this time of year they're my go-tos. The first one is by Cover FX, and it's in the shade Sweet Mulberry. It's one of their blush duos. Nobody talks about these anymore, but I love the formula of this one, and I love the mulberry kind of greyish dark kind of tones of it. Now I'm super pale, but I like a dramatic blush, so I like something that's like deep like this, and I just go in with a light hand with it and just build it up very gradually. So this one's perfect for doing that. You've got a more glowy side and you've got a matte side. Sometimes mix them together. I've used them on their own as well, but it isn't one that I reach for all the time. I definitely only reach for it in spooky season. Another great blush palette, which I use all year round but really comes into its own in spooky season, is the Clown blush palette from Likely Makeup. I own the Clown and the Fairy, but the Clown is definitely more winter vibes. And if I'm going to do a look that's kind of spooky, vampire kind of looking, then this shade Circus, the deep red in there, is the shade for that. You can also do the sort of autumnal fall vibes with the contortion shade. Not really been brave enough to wear Carnival, but I think mixed with the contortion shade it could work for me. Don't really ever use the pink one, but it's all about Circus for me for this time of year. If you're looking for a red blush, this one's perfect because it's got that kind of not too vibrant a red to it. So it's the perfect red to complement black and red looks that you might do for spooky season. So you'll be seeing this one in action on my channel very soon. I love these palettes. I love the aesthetic of the brand, and I'm just so happy that I own them. Okay, next up I've got a blush and highlight palette. This was limited edition, no longer available. It wasn't available for very long at all actually, but it was when Kat Von D was Kat Von D and not KVD Beauty, and it's the Fetish palette. I've got the eyeshadow palette as well, but I've got a lot of eyeshadow palettes to show you, so I didn't include that, although I do love it. But this is perfect for spooky season for me. because if you want the autumnal vibes, you've got the orange shades in the middle, but it's all about these cool tone purples for me. It's what I'm wearing on my cheeks right now. So that shade Coven as a blush, you don't find very many lilac-y blushes that are wearable, but I think this is pretty wearable for me anyway. And then the shade Telepathy, the highlight there is super sparkly. I love my highlights to be super sparkly, and I loved the Kat Von D formula for highlights. So this palette was absolutely bomb. Love it. I love it in the summer, or like Valentine's Day as well for these shades here. But for spooky season, it's all about the lilacs and purples. And then moving on to just specifically highlight, I've got a really old one here, but I do reach into this at this time of year, and it's one of the glow kits from Anastasia. I think this one was limited edition at the time. I don't know if you can get it anymore, but it's the Moonchild. This one and the Aurora are honestly so good if you've got pale skin like me. And the shade Lucky Clover is a green. It's really pretty. And also the shade Purple Horseshoe is a purple. But they are magical colours and really pretty on the cheeks, particularly if you're as pale as I am. And then lastly for cheeks is another product that's no longer available. I'm super sad that this isn't available, and so many people have said they'd love to see this come back. They're not listening to us, but it's Kaleidos Makeup's Laser Glazer. So this has got a rusty kind of base to it, but a green sparkle on the cheeks. It's not probably for the faint-hearted. If you don't like coloured highlights, you won't like it. But it's got a transparent enough base that it works on someone as super pale as I am, and it's just stunning. I wear it all year round, but particularly if you want to do like a witchy vibed kind of look, then this is perfect. I wore it in my first impressions video for the Beauty Bay Dark Fantasy palette, so if you want to see what it looks like on the cheeks, then I'll link that video in the cards and you can check that out. Okay, moving on to some eye products now, and then we'll look at eyeshadow palettes, and then we'll finish up with lips. So for eye pencils, you wouldn't think there'd be anything specific for this time of year, but there is for me. So particularly this product, it's Black Bean by NYX. So I talk about the jumbo pencil in milk all the time to use with neon brights or to use with pastels. But this is great as a base for smoky eyes, particularly if you want to put black on the lid and then put a different colour in your crease. This will be your friend. These are just incredible. I do them in lots of different colours actually. I've got a purple one, I've got kind of a rusty one, but Black Bean and Milk are the two that I'd go to the most. This is my second one of these that I've gotten through, and yeah, totally recommend it. It's got a bit of a sheen to it, but it doesn't matter, because if you're going to cover it up with shadow to make a smoky eye, then you don't notice that, and it really makes your blacks look super black on the lid. So yeah, that's a recommendation definitely for spooky season. And then there's only two other pencils that I really reach for at this time of year, and one of them is one of the 24/7 pencils from Urban Decay. You can see how little of that I've got left. Definitely a favourite for the winter months, but particularly spooky season. This one's in the shade Mars, and it's that grungy kind of forest green shade. I love to put this on my lower lash line and waterline and smudge it out as like a base for shadow. Just really starts a look off really well. And then we've also got this one from LH Cosmetics, or Linda Halberg. I've talked about this no end on my channel. I love her pencils because you can smudge them about and use them as eyeshadow bases. So definitely use this on my lower lash line a lot. Also, if you sharpen them to a point, they're precise enough to make a wing. I've done that before. But this one's special because it's red, and you don't find very many eye safe red pencils. You can use this on your lips as well because our products are multi-use, but this is the best of the best. If you're looking for eye pencil that stays literally forever, that is smudgeable to start with, but then just literally won't budge in the waterline all day. They are expensive, but they're expensive for a reason, because they're so good. So yeah, the shade Anger Mood is my favourite. Cool Mood is also good, which is the blue. They're all good. All the ones that are from the Mood range are really good. So, but this one's just special, as I say, because it's a red pencil and you don't find many that are eye safe. And then one last eye pencil that I'd almost forgotten about, but I'd be doing myself a disservice not to talk about this. This is definitely a favourite for this time of the year. It's one of the Nabla Cupid Stylos, or Cupid Arrow Stylos. This one's in number 3. It's like a a darkened sort of plummy shade. This paired with the Melt She's in Parties palette, just heaven together, because it's that sort of tone. As I say, I love to do a smudged out lower lash line with this. These you can use on your lips as well. They're not very precise, like the tip of it is quite a thick sort of tip to it. But what I do with this is use a really skinny brush, the EO6 brush from Sigma that I use to do my wings with the Illamasqua gel liner. I use that same brush, dip it into the product, and then you can use it then as a eyeliner, you know, to do wings, but also it's thick enough and smudgy enough to use as an eyeshadow base or on the lower lash line smudged out as well. Love these. I'd love to get more colours. I've got the creamy coloured one and I've got this one, but this one is where it's at. It's such a unique and beautiful colour. And one last product that I always want to reach for at this time of the year is the Suva Beauty UV Brights palette. I love this because you got the brush with it, so it's the only brush I've got really that does that kind of thing for you. But this one is all the Halloween colours and they're super bright, so they can really jazz up a look. But the bright orange is fabulous this time of year. You've got the green, you've got the purple, so those three colours are what I gravitate towards. But I know there's lots of these like hydro liners out there, but I've only ever used the original and best, which are the Suva ones, and I love this palette. It's great value as well. You get so many colours, and I think they're about £22, something along those lines, but they last forever. You don't need very much at all, and yeah, you just add little accents to your look. You don't have to be like super talented to do graphic kind of things. I can't do that really, but I just use it as an accent to go underneath, say, a black gel wing, just to add a little bit more pop to a look, and this is fabulous for that. Okay, on to eyeshadow palettes then that are favourites for spooky season for me. I've got some old favourites and I've got some that I've recently discovered that are starting to become favourites. So these are kind of my recommendations. If you've got these in your collection, I think they're perfect for this time of year. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is a quad. I don't use quads very often, but this one is special. This is really fantastic. It's the Enchanted Mysteries from Linda Halberg. It was at the time, or LH Cosmetics now, of course. And this is just so magical. You can use these shades wet or dry, and it's definitely got the Halloween spooky vibe to it. These two are satiny shades, and then you've got a couple of duochromes. That green to purple, what's that called? Lacuna. That is just so special. I don't have very many duochromes or multichromes, and that one is gorgeous. Mainly green, but it has got a purple shift to it. And then you've got, as I say, a rusty kind of orange and a black satin. And then that's more of a topper kind of shade, but it's got some like micro sparkle of like lilac in that white there. Really is super special, and I really enjoy using this. I've used this a lot for like looks when I'm going out, because I always feel really pretty in it and really special in it. But if you guys would like to see this in action on my channel, I don't think I've ever done a look actually on camera with it. So let me know if you're interested in that, because I'd love to play with this again. Okay, next up we've got the LA Splash Classic Horror Palette. Now this one just screams Halloween to me. I use it every single Halloween. It's not really the best formula in the world, but I always want to use it because of the packaging. It just brings me joy. I don't know if you guys have got things in your collection that you just look at them and they just make you smile, and you want to use them, you want to keep them around because there's something special about them, and that's what this is to me. The shades do need building up, but I like it because, well, I love the mirrored background to it. I always love a mirrored background, nightmare on YouTube, but I do like it. It's got a super black. The purple's not the greatest, but it's got some tones that are just slightly off to them. I don't know how to describe it. It's all matte. And yeah, I've done a lot of looks with this. I'll try and see if I can remember to link a couple of them so that you can see what you can do with it, because I always feel super inspired by this one. I don't know why. It's like a grungy Halloween rainbow palette, and yeah, I'm here for it. Love it. Okay, next up is a palette that's not Halloween themed in any way, but perfect for me for any time of year, but I love it particularly at this time of year. The shades just really lend themselves to this time of year, and it's the So So by Suzanne Jackson Urban Bible palette. If you've been around my channel since the beginning, I used to talk about this all the time, and I've done some looks with it but a long time ago. but it's a grungy dream of a palette, but the shades are like really dark and delicious in this one. This whole sort of section here is really magical. It's got a good black and white in there, got some pops of shimmery colour if you want to liven things up, but it's all about these sort of deeper tones for me, the purples and plums and even the deep browns that are in here. And it's got a little bit of hard pan now on some of the shimmers, but I can still make them work. But I think the whole aesthetic of it as well just makes me want to use it in spooky season. It's got that spooky kind of vibe to it. There's quite a few eyeshadow palettes here that I want to talk about. The next one up is one of my favourite indie brands that never gets enough love, I don't think, on YouTube, and that's Peachy Queen. And this is the We're All Mad Here palette. Now this one like brings me so much joy just looking at the packaging. I just love the cat smile on here. It looks like the Alice's cat. Of course, oh, it's just magical. I just love what they do with this. I think this is still available. I think you can get it. I'm not totally sure. Their palettes come in and out of stock all the time. It's got a really nice mirror. And then this is the shades, and this one's really special. It's got some of those kind of textured shadows in it that I don't normally like because they normally have a lot of fallout in your eyes, and I'm sensitive to that because I'm a contact lens wearer. But these don't do that. That shade Madness and Moonlight, they're creamy enough that they glide on the eyes, but they've got that ultra dimensional kind of look to them as well. It's got a really special couple of shades, that Wrong Way and Shadows. I love tones that I don't have in other palettes. They're a little bit unique, a little bit different. When you've got a big collection like me, that's rare to find, and they're just really special, those two. You've got the typical shades you'd expect to see in a Halloween palette, but you've got some pops of brights that are perhaps a bit unusual. I just think the colour story is fabulous in this one. So yeah, I want to use this again this year. I think I used it once last year, or might even been 2 years ago, because the time just flies by. But yeah, love this brand and love this palette. Right, next up we've got one from a brand that I'm so sad to see a demise of, really. They got bought by Makeup Revolution, but it's BH Cosmetics, and this was when their formula was just amazing. I hear it's not so good now. I've not bought anything recently, but this is the Drop Dead Gorgeous palette. They bought this one out and they bought a smaller one as well, but this is the full-on Crazy. I pulled this one out because there's so many options in here, but it's not just your typical like bright orange, bright green and purple. You know, it's a bit of a different colour story to that. So you've got a couple of pops in here, but predominantly I reach into this one for the red. It's got one of the best red mattes in my collection, and it's also got a red shimmer. It's got an amazing silver. The black is great in here. And also there's a shimmery sort of greeny blue called Ravishing. When I first used this palette, that's what I was tempted to dive into, which is not like me because I always want to use the red first. But when I saw that shade, it's really special. It's got like micro fine glitter, but it adheres to the eyes really well, no fallout, and it's super dimensional and shiny and just magical. So love this palette. There's so much you can do with it, as I say, but not your traditional kind of orange and purple and green look. Something a little bit different. It's like a deep dark rainbow kind of palette, and yeah, love it. The quality is sublime. If you've got it in your collection, definitely dig that one out to use over spooky season. I've got 5 more palettes to talk about. I hope you're not bored with me going through so many palettes, but palettes are where it's at for this time of year for me. I've got 2 to talk about from Shroud Cosmetics, one of my favourite brands. I've got all of their palettes, but this one has been a perennial favourite ever since I got it. In fact, I use it all year round, but spooky season, it's got that creepy cute vibe, so obviously that suggests Halloween anyway. It's a pastel palette, so you wouldn't think you'd be using pastels in October, but the black is the best black in my collection, Void, for sure. I love a deep dark black that doesn't have fallout. This one's spectacular, but I reach into this one more so for the shade Tombstone, the grey. It's a fabulous grey. I love cool tone looks at this time of the year. And, you know, the pastels are great. Like that shade, Cold Shoulder, is fabulous to use in wintry kind of looks. When we get a little bit more to, you know, Christmas time, I'd perhaps want to reach into that. But it's all about the grey. I like to do a grey kind of crease sometimes, and then something a bit more interesting on the lid. Or even like a smoked out grey wing. It's perfect for that, and just, it's got the spooky vibes going on. And then recently I've added to my collection the Batty Bean and Shroud Halloween palette. I've only done one look with it so far, but it's just so inspiring to me. I think it screams Halloween. I'm going to be doing way more looks with this palette because it's just absolutely beautiful. Now this is your typical orange and green and purple, but the shadows are done in a different way. So, you know, there's so many palettes that have got your purple mattes and orange mattes and whatever that are vibrant shades. This one's got an amazing duochrome in that shade Black Flame that kind of, it's got gold or bronzy sparkles to green to purple. It's just so magical. You can't do it justice on camera. And you've got, as I say, grungy kind of tones, but screams Halloween. I can't speak for the formula for all of them because I've not tried them yet, but I'm sure this is going to become a firm favourite for me, and I'm so excited to use it this year. Next up is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes, and again, it's not specifically a Halloween release, but perfect for that, and it's the Beauty Bay Dark Fantasy palette. I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. I'm in the process of filming a multiple looks video, which doesn't happen very often for me because it's a lot of work to just make one video, and so I just don't normally do it, but I'm so inspired by the colour story of this one. It's just beautiful. It's grungy and deep and dark. It's got some neutrals, which I don't mind at all, having the neutrals. It's got a fabulous purple. That's what I've got in my look today. As I say, you'll hear all about this look if you tune in and watch my multiple looks. I think I'm only going to do 3 looks in that video, but I've done a look with the greens. The colour story is so inspiring to me. The shimmers aren't my favourite, spoiler alert, but I can work with them, and I just think the colour story is just something a bit different and definitely screams Halloween to me. So another one that's not Halloween but I think will be perfect for Halloween time is the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Surge palette. So this is going to be a firm favourite for me for creating looks. I've already got a couple of looks in mind to do with this palette that I want to do over spooky season. But this is the palette, sure you're aware of what it looks like. It's had lots of hype over YouTube, but it's got your purples, your greens, your oranges. But what's special about this one, I think, is this row across the middle here. These really super dark but colourful shadows. So, you know, it's not just your black and grey. You have got a colour to them, but they're super, super deep. So I think they're going to be perfect paired with these neons on the lid to do some Halloween looks with. So yeah, stay tuned for that because I've got a few ideas of what I want to do for that. But the formula is fantastic. Again, the shimmers aren't my favourite because they're ones that don't pick up amazingly with a brush. I can make them work, but it's all about these deep mattes and these amazing, amazing neon shades. You don't find neons of this quality very often. This is a fantastic palette. Okay, last but not least is one of my favourite palettes in my entire collection at the moment. Probably used that more than anything else this year, and is it a Christmas movie? Is it a Halloween movie? I don't know, but it's The Nightmare Before Christmas by Colourpop. So I thought it's got spooky vibes. Definitely it's got Nightmare in the title. I think it's Halloween. I've got my Nightmare Before Christmas top on today to film this. I love the movie so much, but I love this palette. I love how small it is. That's one thing that I love. This kind of size would be perfect for me for every Colourpop release, quite honestly. Now, when I've been using it, I've been using these 2 shades pretty much, and then deepening up with this one. And I've just been doing neutral looks for work with it. But it's got a really interesting colour story. Like, this got so bashed when it came out for not having a green in it. And I think people just need to get over that and look at it for what it is, because it's such an interesting kind of spooky, deep kind of colour story with a few pops in it, but you can still make a really dark and spooky look with it. So I'm interested to dip into that shade a bit more. I've not really used that. That's super pretty. The formula is your typical Colourpop formula, really easy to work with. There's none of those sequin shadows apart from the black, but that works just as a black matte. The sparkles aren't annoying. They don't sort of go down your face or anything. They're fine. And yeah, I've really only used, if you take away the colourful side, that's the side I've been using, which is strange for somebody that loves colourful makeup so much. But I think at this time of the year I want to incorporate some more of these tones, but still do a really rich and deep and dark and spooky look with it. So yeah, interested to to pull this out again over the spooky season and show you what things you can do with it if you bought it. So that's it for eyeshadow palettes. I'm going to move on to the final category now, which is lips. And we're staying with Colourpop. This is my favourite set to use at Halloween. No longer available now, but it's the Sophia Nygaard and Colourpop collection with the amazing back packaging. I keep everything in its packaging. I'm sad like that. I've got literally so many boxes in this beauty room, but I like to keep things pristine. But that's the lipsticks in the box. Each of the components have bats on. I'm just going to show you a few of the shades that are a little bit unusual. In fact, I'll show you them all. Interesting shades. I'm just going to show you a couple of them up close. This one, Brucey, is unusual. It's a grey lipstick. And I always like a grey. I think grey is quite flattering. I love black lipstick as well, as you can see. And I think they're not as scary to wear as you might think. They're a bit more neutral than you might first imagine. But that's an interesting one. I love this one. It's a brown. It's called Mrs. Norris. But it's a grungy kind of weird brown, hard to describe, but something very special about the tone of it. And then we've got a dark blackberry kind of colour called Screamer. That's really, really special as well. But all of them are great. The other three are a bit more like neutral, or there's a red there, but they're the three that are unique. And it's just one of those sets that I just love to have in my collection as a collector's piece, but it also really makes me super happy to bust them out at Halloween time. Also for lipsticks, the classic horror lipsticks from LA Splash that came out at the same time as the palette. I love those as well. These are so old and yet they're still good. There's a grey which is called Werewolf, and that's more of a like a, I don't know, it's a paler grey than the one I've just shown you, but it's like, these just do not budge from the lips. They were such a good formula, I love them. And we've got this one called Mummy, which kind of like makes your lips like, I don't know, just blanks them out really. It's a bit like concealer lips, but the tone of it and the shade of it just works really well for my skin tone, and it's just a bit of a weird greyy undertone to it. So love both of those and love the packaging of them. If I'm looking for a lipstick that will go with a bit more fall and autumnal kind of looks, or maybe a spooky look that's orange, but I want to keep it a little bit more toned down, I don't want to wear a black, then this one by Fenty Beauty, it's one of the Stun Lip paints in the shade Underdog, is a favourite. Love the formula of these. This shade by NARS, which is like a kind of cranberry shade, but it's deep and dark, and it's like, it's really rich. It's like a lip paint, so it just paints on without like feeling thick and moussey on the lips at all. It's a really, really thin formula, but in the absolute best way. This is in the shade Combat. I love this one from the Melton Beetlejuice collection. Just recently worn this in the video when I was testing out the Beauty Bay Dark Fantasy. But this one is Ghost with the Most. Really nice tone of sort of olivey, grungy green, and pretty wearable for being a green. Then we've got a Chimera lipstick from Lethal. This is in the shade Nemesis, which is black, but it's got kind of bronzy sparkle running through it. Really super, super pretty. It's predominantly black, but there's just something a little bit interesting about it. And then last but not least, I've saved my two favourites for this kind of spooky season till last, and they're both by Luna Beauty. We've got Witch Bitch, which is a deep kind of Halloween red, and we've got Wicked, which is my favourite black liquid lipstick of all time. So they're all the things I'm excited to be dipping into for spooky season. Some of my absolute favourites in my collection as a whole, but definitely perfect for this time of year. Love to know if you've got any of these things, or what are your go-tos that you gravitate towards for spooky season and fall. But other than that, guys, I hope you've enjoyed a bit more chatty style of video from me. I've not done one of these for a long time. As I say, if you're interested in how I created the look I'm wearing right now, the video for that will be coming next week. But just thank you for watching another one of my videos. I hope you're keeping safe and well and enjoying the start of spooky season. Tonight I'm going to be watching Hocus Pocus 2. Hope you're having a lovely weekend as well, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys.